Okay, dear viewer, I interrupted Hakeem because I wanted you to hear this story as well. I was regaling the boys with our trials here at the Chapman household. Kelsey and our new daughter Evie have been quite ill, but they're on the mend, thankfully. And Hakeem has a contribution to the medical story, so please enjoy.
Okay, so they're speaking about abscesses and draining abscesses, and the joke I was saying is that I had to drain abscess today, and if it wasn't for my mask, the thing shot out like straight into my mouth, basically, but I had the mask on, so luckily nothing got in my mouth. And this reminded me of a story of a friend of mine. He was working abroad, I won't say where, but he was working in the emergency ward, and a couple comes in, and it is a man who's very well endowed, let's say, and a woman who's very eager to please her man. And this particular man had a what's it called? There's some guys get the piercing at the end of their penis. What's that called?
Couldn't tell you.
It has a name.
I'm very vanilla. I have no idea.
You can have a cock ring, but you wear the cock ring at the base of your dick to make it nice and and thick. It makes it a thick
We're eliminating.
But you put it on top.
So many of our listeners.
Not my thing. Yeah, not my thing either. So I don't know what it's called.
It's like a little barbell looking thing. Yeah, basically. Yeah, at the tip of his fairly sizable member. And this woman was overeager, took more than she could handle, and she got it stuck in her throat, basically. And that is possible. Yes, it can happen. And this my guy over here, supposedly they couldn't figure, and the poor girl couldn't. Yeah, basically, but they had to come in, and I don't know if you've ever seen people move like furniture or something.
How did they come to the hospital?
That's like
we have the what's it called, the pails, I think it's called in English, where you can put it underneath somebody if they need to, like if they're unconscious or something. But in this case, they just basically put both of them underneath this thing and lifted them up like furniture and put them and then took them out of the ambulance with like a blanket over them into the clinic. Yeah. And then this friend of mine, what he had to do at the time was basically, because the guy absolutely refused. There are ways that you can do. You can basically aspirate from the penis itself to force him to be soft afterwards. But he refused. He kept saying no, and this is one of those human rights countries. So if the patient says no, I'm teasing, but you know what I mean. So, which by the way, he's kind of fucked up, because I felt his lovely lady was turning blue.
Jesus Christ.
He was like, no, I don't want you doing that. Don't put a needle in my dick, please. The woman could die. Anyways.
But what if they just knocked her out and she could dislodge her jaw? Like, you know, when you pass out, you go soft.
I was still confused on how it got stuck in the first place. How does that work?
Okay, you have voice folds, don't you? You have vocal cords?
Sure, probably.
So the metal got caught there, like in a spider's web.
Basically. Yeah.
Okay.
So it went past, and then when you breathe out, it closes the vocal cords, and then when he pulled back, it got caught on the vocal cords. That's what
I had a similar thing happen to me, but for like 3 seconds, not for like a fucking hospital trip. What the fuck, man? Sorry, please continue. Yeah.
Anyways. This friend of mine had to basically get in there and had to be underneath this guy as he's basically like standing over this poor lady, and he had to dislodge it.
Porn video or something.
Basically, and he had to basically dislodge it by specifically putting an instrument in and prying open the cord so he could get the member out. Yeah, and then finally when he managed to get it out, it popped out, like literally it was like a pop sound, and it slapped the roof of her mouth and went in and slapped his mouth because he was so close. And that's what it reminded me of. And this is a story from like maybe 8 years ago, and he's never lived it down.
It's been in the mouth for so long, so it's probably like super wet and greasy and like all covered in you know what.
Poor girl.
Like we say so many curse words, but I don't think I'm allowed to like say what I just like censored myself from saying. Poor girl, poor doctor, poor guy.
Poor everybody involved. Wow.
Yeah,
but there's certain things, I don't know, maybe it's a cultural thing, but there's certain things that are worth dying for instead of the embarrassment. And for me, this would be one of them, okay? I would take her out, I would take myself out or some shit. Imagine,
oh my God.
Dude, you have to move cities. You have to move cities. You cannot tell me you cannot move cities.
there's like, in your medical journal, there was a detailed like recounting of everything that happened. This will carry them onto both of them, even if they don't remain together. Every time you'll go in the journal, you'll see this fucking. Oh, poor lady and poor guy too. But
wow.
Yeah,
At least if they didn't split and their kid one day asked, "Mom, how did you meet Dad?" They'll have a very decent story. Or no, the doctor started dating one of the two. I don't know if he's gay or not. Dad, how did you meet Dad or Mom? And then it's a whole,
his dick slapped me in the mouth, and I was like, you know what? That tastes like the one.
Didn't know I like dick, but apparently.
But yeah, sorry, I want to serenade you with that one story.
Well, thank you for that beautiful story. That was one of the most spectacular doctor stories I've heard on the podcast, I think.
Sadly, I haven't been I haven't progressed far enough in my career to have tasted any penises, but
one day,
who knows?
One day.
The world is my oyster. Maybe one day I'll. Oh fuck! But yeah, Hakim's gonna say it. I'm very tired. I'm exhausted today.
I think we're all tired, Lord. Man. I've got all these medical issues. I've been I'm like sick and dying over here. If I keel over during this podcast, boys, just bury me under the Buc-ee's parking lot.
Why Buc-ee's?
What is a Buc-ee's?
It's a big gas station. It's like Mecca for white people. We have to take a pilgrimage there to get gas and beaver nuggets.
Oh my god. Hey, you know what? Actually, nuggies would fucking slap right now. Dude, you have no idea. My god. Do you know what I fucking had for lunch today? I had like you get some cheese, like cream cheese, and it's with like pepper. Or like paprika, I don't know how to put it yet. So it's just like, what's the reddish kind of cream cheese. And I had a like bread with that and like some salad in it, and it's so sad. And I was and I don't know, it's because I did have energy to make anything. I was like, I don't want to walk to a proper place to order food or get myself some lunch, so that's what I fucking ate, and I just had some green tea. So I'm running off of a sandwich with cream cheese,
a handful of lettuce, yeah,
basically, and some fucking green tea.
All the Gen Z kids listening to this that never got taught how to actually cook are like, what? That's like what I live off of every single fucking day. That's like a gourmet fucking breakfast. You have the energy to actually cut toast. Speaking of mouths and things going into mouths, I recently went to the dentist, and remember, I don't know, 7-8 months ago, I think, okay, that's 6 months ago, I was like, a filler popped out, and I should get that looked at. Guess how long it took me to get the fucking filler looked at. Since
it's
then,
been like 8 months.
It's been fine. It's absolutely fine. I got it filled. The guy was like, you just we need to remove some plaque, which I still think is kind of a marketing stunt. 20, 30 years ago, nobody was removing no fucking plaque. Now they're fucking, and that's why they're removing dogs' plaques now, okay? Okay, sure. Maybe once every 3 years, maybe I need to remove some
Doctor
fucking plaque.
is seething.
But the doctor's like, Lord, every 3 months or something, every 4 months, or you need to change your toothbrush every 3 weeks. Motherfucker.
Yes. If people learn to actually brush their teeth fucking properly, then maybe you wouldn't need to fucking.
I had a hole in this motherfucker. I hadn't gone for a dentist checkup for 1.5 years, and then I had a hole for 8 months. But I washed my fucking teeth properly. It was like, it's fine. We just need to remove the plaque. Come in a week. I'll probably go in 3 weeks, and I'll be okay. But no, I'm kidding. No, the doctors know best, etc., etc. Except when you guys swallow big pharma propaganda and then you poison the shit out of us. But up until that point, you're absolutely lovely. I'm joking. Nah, I just wanted to see Hakeem especially's reaction to 8 months delay. Honestly, I was kind of terrified at one point. I was like, I'm gonna walk in and this guy's gonna just knock me the fuck out because he's gonna be pissed off because he made the same filler. And he was like, oh, okay, actually he was pissed. I went in and I'm like, a filler popped out that you put in my mouth like 3 years ago. And he's like, me put in your mouth? And I'm like, yes, you put in my mouth. He's like, no, my fillers don't pop out. And I showed him my tooth, and he was like, did you get in fight? For some reason, I'm doing like Slavic accent. His cerebral Croatian is perfect. And I'm like, no, not a fight, but my tooth got chipped a bit. That's why it fell out. So he was like an excuse. But he gave me a discount. And then I gave him the discount as a tip, which was fine.
Nice. That's how you do it.
Oh my God.
Well
that's
done.
nice. Yeah. And that's how you keep a guy.
Yeah.
That's how you have your dentist guy.
but if I'm good at one thing, is
good.
having guys. That's for sure.
Yeah, somebody's gonna clip that.
Yep.
Yeah. I was gonna say, speaking of which, I believe there is an anniversary of sorts that we need to discuss. Yes.
By the time this episode comes out, I guess it's going to be 365 days since I fixed my tooth. I'm kidding. It is going to actually be 365 days since the beginning of this absolutely beautiful project, which I am beyond proud to having shared for a full year with, most importantly, the two of you, but also all of our beautiful and kind listeners whom I hope we manage to make smile, laugh, but also educate at certain moments. So, boys, please tell me, how do you feel with this massive accomplishment of 3 communists, all equal, with no boss, no hierarchical structure, no HR department, no, I don't fucking know, middle management, higher management, executive board, etc., etc.
Hey, the market says we shouldn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
At this moment, I am euphoric. No, I'm just, of course, I'm very happy with this. My energy doesn't come through because all of us are fucking exhausted, but we're generally all very happy, and we couldn't have done it without the lovely people that you guys that actually listen to us. But other than that, yeah, what a fucking vibe, my boys.
Yeah.
The Great Proletarian October podcast. I say that because the fucking Julian and Gregorian calendar, whatever the fuck, it was actually November, the revolution. Same with us. Technically, I think we recorded our first episode in October, but we put it out in November, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right.
So, beyond based. I have nothing more to add.
Well, congratulations, boys. We did it. We're going to shut the podcast down now. This is the last episode. Joke's on you, losers. Well, howdy, y'all. It is episode 55, I believe. Yes, episode 55. And it's been a while since we've done a kind of debunking-centric episode. I think all of our debunks were in like the first dozen episodes or so, which is crazy. That's been that long. So we figured it was time to do another one. So we're just going to hang out. I've got me a chocolate chip cookie and a vodka lemonade, and we're just going to talk about some of the dumbest conservative reactionary takes, some of their talking points that are very present in the discourse, the sparkle emoji discourse.
Discussions.
Yes, and they come up every single time. So if you're talking to your dad, you're going to hear at least a couple of these.
Sorry, go.
So let's just go ahead and jump right in. I think we'll start with a very common one, even in some liberal circles. Like you'll hear Bill Gates kind of talk about this. And that, of course, is overpopulation. The idea that
overpopulate these nuts.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You missed it. These nuts can overpopulate your ass. Get it? Because there's a lot of
those are both terrible jokes. You're both fired.
They're really
Hey, there's no hierarchy here, motherfucker.
Yeah. I propose to fire both of you. Do I have a second?
Yeah, we both.
I motion to pass.
Anyway. So yeah, you hear this a lot, both from the typical reactionaries on Fox News, Tucker Carlson, that sort of thing, but also like weird freaks like Bill Gates who are doing work in Africa and like trying to curtail population growth in non-white countries. Of course, trying to
as
sell.
he buys up all the farmland.
Oh my God, we're doomed. We're doomed. So, but this is very timely because we just hit 8 billion people on planet Earth, and apparently, and I have reason to suspect this is not entirely accurate, the 8 billionth person was born at 12:02 a.m. in Akron, Ohio.
Yeah, of course he was born in the fucking States. Yeah, of course, yeah. And the aliens always invade in the States.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fucking nuclear hell apocalypse starts in the U.S. Fucking Mars crashes in the U.S. Fucking teleporters from other dimensions start in the U.S. All the fucking superheroes from Marvel are from the fucking U.S. Thor is like, U.S. is my fucking favorite spot, man. Fuck my fucking Swedish people that prayed to me.
Sorry, Christ.
I was gonna say, you know, that always like confused me as a kid. Why would Superman come from another planet and then go to the U.S. and then like pledge allegiance to?
There's an alternative. There's an alternative where
Crash
he's
landed
Soviet.
on a farm. Yeah, he crash landed.
Yeah.
But yes, the red sun. I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
The vibes look good though. I like the vibes.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? That would actually most likely be what that's more likely outcome. I would just say. Anyway, sorry, we're gonna keep going on fucking tangents.
Yeah.
I don't care how hard this episode is to listen for the audience. I don't care.
We're just here to have a good time.
Today.
We've got our little snackies, hang out with our boys.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
all right, let's talk about overpopulation. Let's talk about overpopulation just a little bit. So, how big of a problem is it really, or is it not a problem at all? Where did this talking point come from?
All right. If you don't mind me just fucking hijacking, because this is a point that I really don't like, because it's fundamentally it's a racist point.
Yes.
All right. The idea of overpopulation is fundamentally, what's the term, the appropriate term? It's misplaced. The fear is misplaced, because the idea is, we have limited resources. And as a result, with all these people, there are also stupid people who are like, there's not enough space, which is that's not the reality of it. Okay, all of humanity can live in like Rhode Island or something. Yeah. But the smarter reactionaries would be like, but there's not enough resources, so you know what we need to do? We need to kill the Browns. It's basically that's as polite as they can be. They'll use other bullshit, right? I remember Yeah, exactly. It's like, we're gonna give you a fucking a radio if we allow you to fucking if we cut your balls off. Which ironically was a family planning method in India in the 60s, if I remember right. But they didn't cut their balls off, but they would basically vasectomy. Fuck, why can't I say that word? Anyways, the resource point is malplaced because not only are the imperial core, the citizens of the imperial core, much more wasteful, let's say, or they use up a lot more resources. But even amongst those populations, the smallest sliver of the very top, 1% of the 1%, these are the people who pollute like by magnitudes more than anybody else, right? I remember you have to mention the other day how in the UK the top 10% or 5% of the population pollutes the same in 1 year the amount that a regular English person would pollute or British person would pollute in 20 years. Yeah. And then this you can extrapolate this point further. A single American, I think, pollutes or has a larger footprint than 400 Indians or something like that. And this is reproduced for Peru and Nigeria and the Philippines, etc., etc. So if you really genuinely did care and weren't racist and thought that getting rid of people or minimizing populations is the solution, you'd be recommending this for mostly, Western, highly developed, industrialized economies, which basically means white people. But they never say that. I wonder why. I genuinely wonder. I scratch my chin at why these usually, center-right, respectable liberals do not ever say,
Well, it always snowballs. It's what they're going to say is, I mean, if these people didn't run the world, if we didn't have these people in the United States at the levers of power, then, the underdeveloped nations couldn't handle it themselves. Who would take care of the earth? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it becomes a whole laundry list of very sus politics very quickly.
And the other point which says as developing countries develop, they will consume more. And when they consume more, we will end up running out of resources, which kind of implies that if they consume at the same rates as us, it's unsustainable. And instead of, for example, taking, in this case, the degrowth approach and saying maybe we should start having a conversation about how much is being consumed instead of making sure that certain parts of the world stay underdeveloped in order for us to be able to consume enough. But if we disregard even the degrowth argument, the population increase, and everyone basically consuming at similar rates as it is now, with only the 1% removed from said equation when it comes to how much consumption they don't only create through their lifestyle, but through the ownership of capital, through the ownership of mass profit-run industry which is not regulated against pollution at the levels that exist right now. would absolutely be a sustainable growth model according to most scientists. I've never picking a side between the degrowthers and the anti-degrowthers, because in my opinion it's really something that scientists are still debating and discussing about. It's something that is very difficult to talk about, because in order for you to get funding to actually research topics that are this complicated, you need to go to somebody who has a very strong, usually right-wing political bias, and therefore whatever you read on this topic is very often leaning towards one or the other. But what Hakeem mentioned earlier, when it comes to the population size and literally us running out of space, running out of air, running out of water, running out of meat, running out of carrots or whatever, makes absolutely no sense. I wrote this down. Texas has 268,000 square miles of land for a planet of 8 billion plus people. That would equate to approximately 30,000 people per square mile. Manhattan, on the other hand, boasts 67,000 people per square mile, 2 times. This leaves us basically with a world population packed in Texas with plenty of room for tourists, which is me and Hakeem, because we will refuse to move to the States absolutely ever, exactly right. And we'll come visit the rest of the planet here or there while we live in our empty countries or whatever the fuck.
Think how cool that would be, though, if 99% of the planet was just uninhabited and you could just explore it and everybody just lived in Texas.
Do you know what the fucked up bit is? That, you say that and then immediately the dystopian bullshit of how actually, it's like nuclear holocaust happened, or the climate change, and now you have to go in like these bubble pods just because the air will melt your skin. But Texas has been insulated because I don't know, what's his name? Not Cruz. What's his name? Is it Ted Cruz?
Ted Cruz, yeah.
Yeah, he came into the atmosphere and it's fucking...
No, you don't understand. The cowboy hats have always been like this special tool that creates like a little air bubble around your face. It's like technology that was given to them by aliens. They're like cousins of the Egyptians. That's why Texas people built the pyramids in order to develop the cowboy hat in order to
aliens actually really like rodeo too. A fun fact.
Of course, man.
Oh, wow.
The pyramids were for rodeo. Why do you think there's many...
There's a fucking bullshit movie. Hey, it was 2011 or some shit. It was released. Yeah, called Cowboys and Aliens.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah.
It has fucking Harrison.
It was a star-studded cast, and it was like,
yeah.
Why did you people? Yeah. I think the producers must have dirt on every actor in that movie. Like, all right, you're in a cowboy and alien movie now.
I don't fucking know. But you mentioned the pyramids and cowboy hats, and for some reason my mind imagined the Great Pyramid of Giza, but at the top of it there's this really big cowboy hat.
Oh,
like,
hell
proportionally sized.
Oh, boy, howdy. I love it.
Oh, my Lord. And then it just floats away. It's actually a ship. Hey, maybe that's what we need to... Okay, we're
getting way off track. We are deranged this episode.
No,
all right.
it's
Moving on.
But now, US studies project, just so that everybody knows exactly what we're talking about here when it comes to what the studies say, that the world population, which now stands at 7.8 billion, will peak in 64 at 9.7 billion and then fall by 2100 to 8.8 billion. Here we're talking no pandemics and no wars. So in the UN's, if the UN's Sustainable Development Goals are met, the population at one point could even get to a number smaller than 6.3 billion, implying, everybody knows this, but it's still worth saying, as education grows, as literacy rates grow, as life quality increases, as you rely less on physical labor for which you need many children, etc., as family planning is introduced, less people are born, and therefore the population gets quite literally balanced out. So what
all
we as extremely,
by the way,
exactly. So what we, even if we are the most selfish Western people that think the fight for ecology is gardening or some fucking shit, should support the developing world in developing, because that is how we curtail, quote unquote, overpopulation from expanding, even though it's not really a problem. But again, even if you believed it was a problem, the best solution to that would be a more equitable world where you don't need to shit out 20 fucking kids because you're expecting 10 of them to fucking die.
Right.
Yeah, basically. And that's kind of the crux of the the capitalist or neoliberal aspect and the socialist aspect. The neoliberals are more like, oh, we need to limit the population, and then they think of all these fucked up ways, right? While the socialist aspect is like, there's a material cause to why people have so many kids.
Yeah, but they never look at cause. They never look at cause. They treat. We talk about this not only when it comes to the economy, when it comes to everything. Let's just always keep treating the fucking symptoms, but the cause, we pretend it's not fucking there. Why? Because they make money off the fucking cause, you dumb fuck. But of course, we don't say this out loud.
And that's why what Yugavnik said was exactly right. Yeah, education, increased science planning, increased development, etc., will minimize the amount of kids more because they're not necessary fundamentally, and culture will catch up slowly but surely. And that's the trend that we've seen across every culture on Earth, across every class. Even as time goes on, people have less and less kids. With increased levels of development. So there is an actual solution here, and then there's the Bill Gates fucking poison the water so they're infertile.
Yeah.
Like neoliberal nonsense.
Well done, boys. Debunked. All right.
Debunked.
Intimately tied.
I can never say it that way. Debunk. How do you say debunked or debunked?
Debunk. Yeah.
Debunked. Okay. Debunk.
So intimately tied to overpopulation, or even
I thought you were gonna say intimately tied to myself. I was like, JT. I was like, what the fuck?
You'll see what he's saying in a minute, audience. Yes, we're talking about white genocide, or as it's often called, oh my god, as it's often called euphemistically,
a really good time.
The Great Replacement. We are gonna get canceled so hard.
Replace these nuts.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
You're welcome, listeners. Right. So, white genocide. It's the thing you hear on Fox News, and usually they won't use the term genocide. Usually they'll say Great Replacement. They'll be euphemistic about it, but the suggestion is that birth rates in non-white countries are exceeding that of white/Western countries, or in the United States. Yeah, in the United States specifically, immigrant babies outnumber white babies, and we'll get into what white means in a second. But thinking about this, like what even is white? That makes me want to make my own documentary, like the stupid "What is a Woman" documentary. Where I'm gonna make what is a cracker? What is
that?
A
Is a great idea. Fuck, that is a great idea. Fuck, that is a great idea. And you go and you interview fucking conservative people in a passive aggressive voice, the way he interviewed trans rights activists and shit. That would, oh my god, fucking patent that shit right here. Sorry, please continue.
That would be a good time. But all right, so if we're talking about this white genocide or Great Replacement theory, quote unquote theory, it dovetails nicely with the overpopulation thing. All right, but let's get into the part that makes it kind of untenable for these people to defend. The notion of whiteness itself. So boys, what to you constitutes a white person?
Liking mayo.
Jesus.
Yeah, I love mayo, but yeah.
I mean, I'm joking. Actually, I remember I made a video about this before. Okay, the very concept of white is so fluid as to become meaningless because some people were white at one point and then ceased to be white. Some people were never white, and then all of a sudden, on the flip of a dime, right, they're white for a short period of time before they're, thrown back into, Asiatic hordes, like Ukrainians, right? They became briefly white, beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed Europeans, and then just give it a couple of months, and then the Europeans will all fucking forget, and so will the Americans. And they'll go back to being, these fucking Carpathian Huns. But yeah, and then there's not even to mention like Irish people and Mexicans and Italians in the U.S. from the early 20th century, late 18th.
When they immigrated, when they came off the boat, I mean, there was incredible prejudice against these people, specifically because they were not considered white. They were considered inferior to the Western European Anglo type people that inhabited the United States at the time. And then just
I love when you say I'm so used to hearing Anglo as an insult that when you say Anglo,
these Angloids,
Papists. Yeah, but I always, to me, the concept of whiteness in general, from the radically insane definitions that the Nazis gave them to less, let's call it, to more spontaneous definitions, which we saw in the early onset of American civilization, have always been fascinating to me because for two particular reasons. Number one is it is so loosely defined that it is difficult to organize around, but, and now the second part, if given to an organization who can espouse its ideology through the lens of racial supremacy, it could ironically then become an incredibly rigidly defined and easy to use tool to unify Group A versus Group B. So basically, the whiteness is a definition, is a tool sitting out there that is basically useless for 99% of things, except when somebody who knows exactly how to use it comes and manages to use it. And that is how you get, when it comes to, for example, the pinnacle of a fascist example, Nazi Germany, who went to such extremes of trying to define exactly what their superior race is, that they even had infighting inside of the Nazi party over what it means to actually be white. A lot of people get confused thinking that Aryans are a particular group of people or specifically a race of people. Aryans are perceived as individuals that have come a long time before. There was a very advanced civilization that got fucked up mostly because they started interbreeding with lower races. Their culture started falling apart, and then their peoples, moved all over the place. In Germany, just in Germany, it happens to be that there's a race, now we're talking about a race of people of the nomadic race, which exists, which is around 60% of Germany, who are a race which is least mixed, still mixed, but least mixed as compared to the pure Aryans of old. And then there's another group of people in Germany, and a third actually group of people in Germany, which are allowed to be intermixed with, but the future plan is for us to breed them out and become as Nordic as possible and as close to Aryans as possible. What I'm trying to put out here with this explanation of the specific manner through which the Nazis saw race is that you can take it to these absolutely insane levels, such as like we are descendants of people that lived in fucking Atlantis. Right? And it's going to work so fucking well because when you tell somebody that they are superior and they have nothing else that they can be proud about in life, it is absolute perfection. And the original Nazi idea of expansion was one indirectly very much so built against the perceived idea of white genocide. Only there it is implied that the Jew, through Bolshevism and through the support of interracial marriages, is going to eventually lead to the complete downfall of the descendants of the Aryan peoples. And we've seen what happened in World War II and how many exactly go George Soros. And we see to which extent this argument could work. That's why I always, whenever we talk about it, it's silly. The Great Replacement, fucking white genocide. It comes from the mouths of extremely cringe individuals. But when an intelligent but maleficent person manages to utilize the rhetoric of replacement, especially of replacement of something, the Germans, in my opinion, fucked up by defining it so rigidly. The American racists are doing a much better job. Make white as broad as fucking possible and make the enemy as precise as fucking possible. That is how you build a fucking massive coalition against the perceived quote-unquote enemy. And then tell your coalition of motherfuckers that look completely fucking different, especially in the US, like real European racists don't think you're all fucking Mongoloids. I don't know how you can be a fucking proud Aryan in the US, but whatever. if you get my fucking point. It is a very useful point of rhetoric that can be lit on fire, especially in an international place such as Canada, US, fucking Mexico, Germany, etc., etc. And it needs to be taken very fucking seriously.
Yeah, it distracts from, of course, the main conflict, the main contradiction, which is class and all that. We don't need to repeat all that stuff here. But something that always interests me about this silly approach is it's two things. The first one is a lot of these, cultural, they will not replace us, these, great replacement types. They have this pathological fear that, especially in Europe, because a lot of these people are from former colonial powers, right? And they know what actual colonization is like because they lived it and they've experienced it and their countries got wealthy off of it. And this subconscious fear, I think, is more a reflection of the fact that they're afraid that if the same were to happen to them, or if immigrants were to come to them, they're going to do what they did to other countries, right? Impose their language and religion and forcibly marry their women. And the politics will somehow be all entirely aligned in their end, and what, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And that's very telling.
They're afraid of being the minority. They're always hypocrites when you talk to them about it. Always hypocrites. So what did England do to all of its colonies? It gave them civilization. And what is happening now when the Nigerian is moving to the UK? They're bringing barbarism. Wait. So you mean when you go, you are bringing civilization because you're what? You're superior. And when they come, they're bringing barbarism. And didn't you just say that you civilized them? Aren't the Nigerians super civilized now? What do you have anything against them coming over?
Civilization is a genetic trait with the whites. As long as he's present in the vicinity of the place is civilized. The second he leaves, all of a sudden, it's so stupid. Again, it's that meme. It's like, why are you afraid of being a minority? I thought, what is wrong exactly about being a minority? And then you interrogate. It falls apart if you interrogate it even a little bit.
Yeah.
But also, I want to actually ask this of JT more than you got me, because I don't know if this exists in the Balkans, but I know it exists in the US. What is with this weird Asian woman exemption, where you'll have these white racists, white nationalists, but they'll be with Asian women, and suddenly that means honorary waifu. Okay,
it's a fetish. It's a fetish. I mean, from what I've seen, it is entirely 100% kind of like the sexpat mentality, where you have a lot of Americans who will move abroad, and not just Americans, but other Angloids will move to places like Cambodia or Vietnam or wherever to basically take advantage of the sex trade, whether illicit or not. And they're just generally very slimy people. But even here in the United States, like, Asian women are treated as like an object of desire. And I don't want to get all like philosophical about anime and stuff and how it kind of infantilizes women, but maybe that has a part to play in the equation, but I don't know.
Half of the program's listeners log off.
Sorry. I'm just not. I'm personally not a weeb, and I do suspect a lot of anime has having some very reactionary and not good ideology.
I mean,
baked into it.
She's actually an 800-year-old dragon.
Yeah, very sus stuff. Yeah, but as far as I know, it's mostly just a fetish. It's like white dudes love Asian women, and that's the trope, and there is some truth to it.
Yeah, and the Wehrmacht was allowed to fuck lower races as long as they don't get pregnant.
Right.
If they get pregnant, then the baby needs to be reported and removed. The interaction with the lower breeds on a sexual level was looked down upon on the same extent, like, fucking without a condom and shit like that. But breeding with them, that is what is a problem. So even a very quote unquote principled racist could get away with even having sex with, God forbid, a black woman or a Native American woman. But as long as they don't get pregnant, as fucked up as it sounds. But that's what goes back again to the incredibly broad definition of what it is that they consider superior or lacking superiority. You can come up with it on a literal whim, and the Nazis actively did. We need allies from those dirty fucking Romanians. Okay, now all of a sudden they have some Nordics there, and now we're friends. The same will be used by future fascist movements, because they understand that whites can't win wars, so we need some melanin up in this bitch.
Oh my lord.
Well,
Hold on. The last point I was gonna say is, have you guys seen that Twitter post where it's like a selfie of some black woman, and then there's this like MAGA type racist dude, and he's like, God damn, Black Lives
I'm a
Matter.
racist. Yeah.
Oh fuck! Sorry, that was my last point to finish off.
Anyway, speaking of Nazis, here's another one that's very, very common, and I made a video on it recently about equating the Nazis with socialists, or more specifically saying that the Nazis were socialists. So, fellers, I got me some questions about these this assertion. If the Nazis were socialists, why were the two always trying to kill each other so much? Why did they hate each other so much? Why were the communists always the first to be exterminated and hunted down?
Leftist infighting. That's all it is.
That's
it
right.
was leftist infighting.
Oh, you're right. Okay. Yeah, they were socialists. My bad.
This is one of the core original ideas of the Deprogram. Don't you remember from many episodes ago? And when you really think about it, all ideologies are leftist, and all of history is leftist infighting. Marx was completely wrong that all of history is class warfare, etc., etc. All of history is just leftist infighting. Genghis Khan had one leftist idea fighting against the Persians with another leftist idea. It is all leftist infighting.
I was going to say, before I actually get into this, because I want to do like a quick blitz round, because it's such a tired point that people somehow still believe it, because the American education system is a nightmare. Before I get into that, though, why did you make the thumbnail of your video a sexy Hitler? What is that about?
I just needed someone who wasn't Hitler, because the algorithm would see that and demonetize it. But I slapped a mustache on just some like generic worker.
Oh,
dude.
You're
so wrong.
You edited it.
You're so wrong. YouTube loves
Yeah.
Hitler, loves swastikas, loves that shit.
It loves Hitler, yes, but it will take your money if you show like Hitler with a swastika. Generally, that's why I typically try not to show him in videos.
That being said, though, I can do the quick blitz because this is fucking stupid.
The
Funny that I say blitz, but
yeah.
All right. Hey, the losers lost the war, so get fucked. Anyways, and the dumbass shot himself, so fuck him. Anyways, first and foremost, the very concept of privatization was coined by Nazi Germany. So for you to come and be like, oh, blah, 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 it's a fucking... No, it isn't. Socialism is an actual defined thing, usually by economic relations. And in every fascist country, not only Nazi Germany, but every fascist country, markets aren't abolished. Private ownership of capital remains. Wage labor remains. Private property remains. And all these other institutions are strengthened, in fact. They're not weakened. But they do the favorite pastime of fascist movements, which is to adopt socialist rhetoric and socialist symbology, because it is and has always been and will continue to be popular, because that actually represents the interests of the vast majority of people. So that's why they have to do this shit. That's what, in a weird way, by the way, connected but not connected. That's why the Democrats do all this fucking not liberal washing, but like progressive washing of all their nonsense, right? They're gonna have a token black person there, or an ethnic of some sort, and they're gonna, Joe Biden's gonna say a sentence or two in Spanish, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
I'd love to see him try.
Yeah, the guy can barely speak English. Yeah. Oh man, hey, nobody will beat our good old George W. Right? Oh. He was a master, and then
let me hit that drive.
But yeah, and of course, Lenin's statement, which is always ever true: fascism is capitalism in decay. When capital feels threatened, it regresses or it retreats into a intensification of the state apparatus in all its violent and coercive arms or forces. You have a strengthening of a military presence, militarization of police that exists. You have a combining of corporate and state power. You have complete decimation of anything that even resembles workers' power. So independent labor unions, socialist and communist parties, the ability to protest, all of this is completely out the window. Collective bargaining, all of it is completely destroyed. And that's why also, if you ever want to really know who the true enemies of fascists are, just see who they go after. The first people they go after, and it's always the communists, very interestingly. Do you know who else has that parallel? All these, fantastic, beautiful, lovely democracies that everybody seems to praise. Liberal and, we have a good parliamentary system. Everybody can be represented. But the second capital is threatened, the first things they start doing is banning communist parties, preventing them from getting permits to run for elections, and all the other bullshit that they fucking do. So yeah, scratch a social democrat, fascist, please, blah, blah. We've done an episode about this, I think. I don't remember now. We've done something about this, I'm sure. No, boys, guys, red, okay? There is red in the Nazi Germany's flag. There's red in the Soviet Union's flag. There it is, confirmed, okay? Canada, fascist and communist,
France,
okay? Tunisia. Oh, my God.
Okay, moving on. I don't have an easy segue for this one. So, number 4, welfare makes people lazy. How many times have you guys heard this? This is particularly common in the United States, but I think it's also being exported abroad a little bit more now. Maybe not with the exact terminology, but the idea that any kind of social protections or benefits designed to help the poor prevent those people from being a productive member of society. Like, the term welfare queen comes to mind, where, these white people always assume it's this big black lady with 30 kids sitting at home eating Cheetos and watching TV and not working and just collecting a welfare check and living like, living like royalty. So this is obviously farcical on its face, but let's dive a little bit deeper. Boys, what do you have to say about welfare?
It's extremely useful even outside of the American system, and in countries that are not per se international, because when you're looking for the reasons that your life sucks and you keep looking around and there's people in fucking S-classes buying up all the property around you, owning banks and shit, and you shouldn't be concentrating on them. The welfare leech, as he, she, or they are called, is usually what's presented to you as the perfect alternative of who we can blame instead of actual capital. It's really hatred towards the idea that people deserve help and that we as a society should give help. It's more of a question of who gets to deserve it. When you're walking down the street and you give some kid or some homeless dude or grandpa or lady $2, probably everybody has heard this at some point of their life, and one of your friends or acquaintances that you're walking with or colleagues says, what are you giving them? They're just gonna drink it away. They're just gonna give it to the guy who owns the 30 kids, and it's gonna beat the shit out of the kid if he doesn't come back with $20, which what happens in my part of the world a lot, etc., etc. It is this idea that we get to choose and define what type of poverty is allowable poverty and what type of poverty is not allowable. Why we think we get to choose what the legitimate reasons are for somebody to be poor and the illegitimate reasons are for somebody to be poor or homeless, which is something that unless you have experienced yourself, unless you have hit that rock bottom yourself, you will never be able to completely understand, because your life happened to have gone in a relatively better or a lot better direction. Basically, the imaginary subclass, just how the middle class is imaginary, the imaginary subclass of these welfare leeches or poor people that are poorer than me, or the poor people that don't want to work, etc., which then are lumpens, but you get my fucking point, are the ideal tool for the liberal or the conservative, which doesn't want to deep dive into racism, for having the reactionary reasoning for why you really don't need a revolution, why you really don't need a different system, etc., etc. It's not that much. Nobody gives because some people give a fuck, but nobody feels like the money they give for taxes is their money and oh my god, this guy's taking it. Just feeling like I'm working so hard to barely fucking survive and that guy's getting it easy. No, my friend, the guy that's getting it easy is the motherfucker with the fucking 6S classes I mentioned before. Not the, drunk, drugged out, I don't care, homeless guy that's asking you for some $2 so he doesn't pass the fuck out on the street. Yeah, that's it.
And this is what I really like about Joachim's answer, is that's the human answer, that's the reality of it. But if you were to even if you were to be super cold and calculating about this and were to just look at numbers, not even human beings, you'd realize that this point is fucking bullshit. And just a very quick overview. First of all, this weird punishment mentality where, they need to absolutely be like, teetering on the edge of absolute destitution for them to push them into, getting a job and whatnot. This is fundamentally a stupid perspective, because instead of allowing people the breathing room so they can find stable and gainful employment, they'll be forced into really sketchy, low-quality gig work or other temporary work just to make ends meet, just to be able to survive. Right? Before even thinking about getting a proper employment that would be able to maintain them. So that's the fundamental mistake of this. But this is also supported by all the research, which is more than clear that welfare does not make people lazy. Not one bit of research supports this nonsense. Vast majority of research shows very clearly that already the very inadequate system of welfare that exists in most countries, like the US, for example, is absolutely crucial and has a massive net positive effects for pushing people into actually searching for gainful employment, getting the necessary training so that they can maintain gainful employment. Not only this, but it increases likelihood of them actually finding a job in the first place. So that was number one. Number two, the big memes like, you're just gonna sit there on welfare. Have you ever seen the only people who say this shit have never seen a welfare check.
Yeah.
Or had to live on this fucking shit. Because you get fucking pennies. You'd barely be able to fucking survive. I remember I looked into it. In the US, for some of their stupid programs, you need to be half the poverty line in the US to even qualify. Half the poverty line. That means you're getting like $26 a fucking week to survive. It's ridiculous, honestly. Oh my God. But yeah, it's... all of this, in the end of the day, is even if you were to have a strong welfare system with a country that's, good state tax funded, blah, blah, all that, all this is still fundamentally inadequate and it's an inherent failing of the capitalist system. People are homeless or don't have proper employment or have to be on welfare, etc. because of, again, there's a material reason to it. There's a cause there. There's something that can be directly treated, whether it's lack of education or lack of employment opportunities in that particular community or bad infrastructure that doesn't allow people to go into the particular parts where there is employment, etc., etc., etc. There's always a fucking solution. That's my point. And of course, the final point, the biggest welfare recipients, the people who get the biggest fucking payouts and all the biggest government checks without any fucking strings attached, are the ruling class, the people who own everything, the people who already have more money than they know what to do with. These are the people who get payouts from the government. Their businesses are bailed out, their banks are paid off, etc., etc.
Yeah, look at COVID. Like, how many of the people who are saying, these welfare queens, whatever, have had hundreds of thousands of dollars in PPP loans paid off, just forgiven, waived, like nothing. And it's every single time you see someone on Twitter saying something like that, you can look them up because it's public record how much of their loans they had forgiven. You can see them. So go look next time somebody says that. It's very clear, it's very transparent, and you should not give these people the time of day. Okay, moving on. So this is this ties in nicely with the last point. Personal responsibility, as in everything you do is entirely up to you. Every action you take can lead you to success. Everyone starts on a level playing field, according to these people. Everyone has the opportunity to, quote unquote, succeed. And what success looks like to these people is, financial stability or, running a business or whatever it is. You have
stepping on your film, man.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the bootstraps thing. It's you have the ability to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and achieve whatever, regardless of your circumstances. Now, again, obviously, this stuff is not the case. But why is that? Why do you think that this is such a common trope that is brought up? And what can you guys point to help other people understand that this is not necessarily accurate?
I recently made a whole dedicated video on this topic because it has always irked me from the perspective of people stating that we cannot develop a better system because of our quote-unquote inadequate human nature, which will then inherently corrupt it, etc., etc. But a lot of the discussion that happened in that particular script based on the stuff that I read on said topic kept returning to basically the personal responsibility myth of everything that you do and everything that you achieve depends on just how hard you try, etc., etc. And obviously, I'm not going to spam you with all the shit that I talk about there much more extensively, but let's touch on a few things. Do you really think that if Albert Einstein was born to two parents that can't even talk in the middle of rural, I don't know, whatever, let's say Sri Lanka, he would have been able to create the beautiful theories that he was able to create? Straw man, I know, but can you really ever at any point with honesty to yourself say yes, absolutely no, fuck that? Actually, because we live in the capitalist system as it is right now, we have lost, in my opinion, millions of brilliant minds that did not have the material resources to actually give the beauty which happened to be the genetic code that created their beautiful brains and their environment that influenced in that brain to flourish, and we're not able to give back to the world around them to the same extent, again, as a consequence of the market economy. Number two, if you take two identical twins, you put one in a super fucked up environment, you take the second one, you put them in a much better environment. These are people with the identical genetic code. And while, yes, their genetic code will influence certain things, certain preferences, etc., the way their life is going to go and the way their life goes usually in almost all the cases that I've seen is quite radically different. Meaning that no matter how much both of these people with the same power of will, same blood, wanna succeed in this or that, they end up on quite different levels, and not only on quite different levels of like the typical capitalist definition of what success is, but they start defining what success is completely differently as well. If we look at the generational wealth gap, which basically pits son or daughter against father or mother when it comes to what they can do in their life. The personal responsibility of your boomer dad was not necessarily much better. You are more likely to have been much more productive in your workplace than they ever were, but because they existed in what? A different environment and a different economic system, a different stage of the same economic system, they managed to personally responsibilize themselves to a much higher level because a house costs 10 fucking cents and the university basically paid you to go to it. Obviously, I'm joking. But all of these 3-4 examples, and I could give 500 more, teach us one very particular thing, and that is that we are, to one extent or another, results of our environments. Are we 100% the results of our environments? I would completely disagree. Absolutely not. We should never use this argument to completely step away from any sort of personal responsibility and go into some stupid-ass nihilism of, everything will happen because it's pre-written, completely subscribe to determinism, etc., etc. But the opposite claim of everything being in your control is not only unscientific, but quite literally soulless and pathetic.
Beautifully said. Beautifully. Nothing to add.
All right, moving on. So next, let's talk about affirmative action. And this is one of those hot button terms that kind of, it's faded from view a little bit since Obama left office, but it was kind of back when Obama, mysterious last name, was
Obamism.
Please say
the greatest communist
ideology.
ideology.
His name properly.
Obama.
There we go. Obama. I fucking love that shit. Sorry, go on. Anyways. So affirmative action is basically, TLDR, it's a set of procedures designed to eliminate unlawful discrimination among applicants to jobs or positions, to remedy the consequences of such prior discrimination, and keep it from happening in the future. So this could be for people looking for a position in a job or applying to attend a certain school. And the way reactionaries see this is giving an unfair advantage to people who are not white. And they usually assume it's like affirmative action equals easy points for black people. But it's also, it's not just black people or any other particular race or identity. It's
anyone who is not represented adequately, quote unquote, however that's determined, and we'll get into that, in the given space, whether that's due to sexual orientation or religion, race, whatever. So, affirmative action sounds pretty vague. What do we think of this, boys?
All right, this is something I really, really don't like this point, because it's so incredibly overstated, particularly in the US, where people complain about it most, at least what I've seen online. Because even if you look at it internationally, the vast majority of places do not have quotas for we need this many women, we need this many blacks, we need this many, etc., etc., etc. The vast majority of it is, we want to have increased consideration for, employing this a person from this background, or, etc., etc., which basically amounts to fucking nothing. That's what that means, increased consideration. You can wipe your ass with increased consideration. The few places that do have quotas are such ridiculous, it's like this weird, progressive washing of capitalist nonsense. There's an EU law that was passed semi-recently, which basically said that all boards of major European companies have to have at least 20% women being represented, right? And the thing is that at the end of the day, if you're to look at these quotas, it's in shit that the vast majority of people will not only do not care about, but has no actual doesn't reflect on society in general. What's more important is having people within education, for example, representation in government. These are things that are actually important. Not there's two more really wealthy white women in this fucking right. But that's not the annoying bit about it, actually. The vast majority, if there's even gonna be affirmative action, it takes place like this. You have two equally qualified people, completely exactly equal in their ability to do the job, in their qualifications in education, in their work history and experience, etc. One of them happens to be the majority representative of that particular society, and one of them tends to be is the minority. If these two people were exactly equal, and there is some national impetus we need to have more of this minority in these positions, then the minority would be picked as the tiebreaker. That's what would be done. And I find this very interesting, because the inverse is actually what happens the vast majority of the time, particularly in the United States, for example, where you see that regardless of how qualified somebody is for a job, for example, if you're black or have a black, quote unquote, black sounding name, whatever that's supposed to mean, right? Or Hispanic, or basically not a white, mostly white men, but even white women have a advantage over minority women. All people who are of the minority get less callbacks. They get lower employment rates. They're fired more frequently. Usually they're the first ones to be fired. They get less pay. They get less career development. They get less benefits across the board. Right? So at best, affirmative action is like trying to make up a small part of the deficit, at best, if it even works the way it's supposed to, which vast majority of the time it doesn't. I want to actually quote something which is hilarious, and this is something that supposedly the European Union is trying to push, something called positive action. Listen to this, your poverty is your own fault bullshit. And I quote, "An alternative approach is positive action. Under this approach, the focus tends to be on ensuring equal opportunity and, for example, targeted advertising campaigns to encourage ethnic minority candidates to join police forces."
They said that. They said the thing.
Guys.
They said the thing.
Guys, this is often described as being colorblind.
Oh no!
I love it. It's like, you know what? The only way the only place we want more minorities is when you're gonna be killing other minorities, just so the optics work out.
Oh my god!
I bet you, if the BLM stuff and when it first started, I bet you if that cop was black, the amount of the liberal self-imploding that would occur would be, oh my lord. But yeah. Of course, this is all of this, even affirmative action in and of itself is kind of cringe from a Marxist perspective, because Again, there are material causes to these deficiencies, and they're not, because they're, the blacks are less brachiocephalic, and as a result, no skull measuring bullshit. No, it's because of usually these people, either minority backgrounds or immigrant backgrounds, have less opportunities to enter into education, for example. They're discriminated against on a society-wide basis. It's amongst a billion reasons, basically, but the root cause isn't fixed, and that's why they can have to continue being like, we need affirmative action, but it doesn't really work. It's a band-aid at the end of the day, right? Affirmative action without a proper background necessities for a particular job or position or whatever just means people attending, for example, expensive institutions, universities, living in expensive areas, but then at the end not having the means to pay to remain in those places, so they end up being dropouts. And this is something that you see in the quote-unquote conservative research on affirmative action. They're like, a lot of these blacks from poor communities, they're sent to Ivy League institutions, and then they drop out halfway, and actually that's why affirmative action is a bad thing. But they don't actually talk about how these people don't have the economic means to remain in these places in the first place, and that's why. Again, see, so it's a band-aid. You need to actually treat the underlying condition. Anyways, that's my point about all
brilliantly put. I don't know how it is in Iraq, but in my part of the world, and actually in Western Europe in general, the reason why they were able to pass legislation such as what you previously mentioned about pushing more black cops or whatever is because the affirmative action as a concept existing in the U.S. has been used so wisely and menacingly by the European right wing that it's borderline impressive propaganda. What they tell us about what happens in the US is, if there's a promotion coming, they're like, we don't care that you've been here for 10 years. Let's give it to the black trans woman who's been here for 3 weeks. That is how affirmative action is presented in Europe in general, and it freaks everyone the fuck out for some fucking reason. I mean, understandably, if it's to such a cartoonish level, as what it is, shown, that it kind of becomes as an argument of, if we go too international, the way that the Americans are going, we will have to not only pay them welfare, what we talked about previously, but we will have to also give them our spots, which we have so hardly worked for. So to me, it was always very ironic, this incredibly right-wing country, the United States, being used as an example of what happens if you give too many rights to the disadvantaged, and so on and so on. And that leads to policies such as this. They're like, oh no, we don't want to be like the Americans where, everybody gets second place trophies and shit. That type of 2006 stuff. Exactly. But something that's so 2005 but still works today. Everybody, you talk to a random fucking 75-year-old, I don't know, grandma from Croatia or from fucking France about affirmative action in the States, and they will tell you horror stories that they read, I don't know, in the Sun Times or some shit that are just stuck in their brain. It works. It works as a scary fucking thing, and it coming from the States is very ironic.
I just want to state, by the way, because this point is finished, but I just want to state that JT went through our doc entirely and took every labor with a U, like Labour, right, and erased every U out of it, because Anglo's out, but also, I don't know why that irritates me. I hate seeing labor without the U. Maybe it's because OUR spells hour and labor is, collective. Maybe that's why. But
every time I read it, I'm like, exactly. Labour, what is Cullauer? What are you people doing?
You guys did it because you didn't have fucking the money to pay for the ink. All right.
You're right.
Oh Lord.
The Leibauer theory of value.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. This one is particularly close to home at the moment. Private healthcare is better. Okay. As someone who, one, just had a child and has seen the bill, and just had not one but 2 hospital stays for people in my household, and I'm currently awaiting those bills. Oh.
I'm sorry, JT, I just have a question. You know, like in old Looney Tunes cartoons when their eyes pop out of their head when they look at something. Is that what happened to you when you got the bill?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Went like boing.
Boing. No.
Yeah. So it's not great on that front, where it's just incredibly, just unfathomably expensive for people in most of the world. They would look at a U.S. bill and be like, "Are you kidding me? You stubbed your toe and they're charging you $1,200." We've mentioned this in multiple episodes before, but like the average cost to have a baby in the United States with insurance is like $10,000, and if you have a C-section, it's $30,000, which is absurd. So,
and that's not white genocide, by the way. That isn't. Right? So I'm just saying.
No.
There's affirmative action for the black babies. So affirmative action for black babies, they don't make them pay. They don't make the black babies pay.
But the one thing that we also have to consider that is not just the.
I was gonna make a horrible joke, and I thought about the opposite. I was like, fuck it. I was gonna say they make the black babies pay by putting into effect the 13th Amendment.
Oof, Jesus Christ!
Which is, hey, but it's
true.
That's what the American government does.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
But it's not just, as I was saying, it's not just the expense. Like, if we had the best healthcare in the world and it was the most expensive, you know what? Fine. Like, you could make an argument for that. But we don't. Among wealthy peer nations, like among the rest of the quote-unquote West, the developed world, whatever you want to call it, we rank dead last in healthcare outcomes. Dead last. Like, it's not even close. We spend more of our gross domestic product on healthcare, and yet we're dead last. We rank last in access to care, administrative efficiency, equity, and healthcare outcomes.
Jesus Christ.
It's there. There's no defending it, in my opinion. But I'd like to hear what you guys think.
The gap is ridiculous. No, I was just gonna say, because I've always known it was dead last, but I was like, oh yeah, it's probably by a smidgen, like just a little bit.
No.
And I looked at it, I'm like, it looks like, do you know, for the listeners, there's like a trend, and it's like a straight line, and then it falls off a cliff, and the US is at the bottom of the cliff. It's like half the graph is just to accommodate how low the US is.
Like, that's the thing. It's like they have, the only other argument they have is, oh, well, you have to, I mean, in other countries, you have to wait longer. It's like, first of all, that's not necessarily true.
It's not true.
Like, right now in the United States, every hospital is overwhelmed because of how badly we handled COVID. Like, we went to take Evie to the ER, and it was packed to the brim with parents and their sick children, and it was horrific to see. Like, the hallways were filled, and we were told, like, we got put in like basically a cupboard because hers was pretty acute, and they're like, all right, well, you've got 20 kids ahead of you waiting for a bed, but we'll get you into a room as soon as we can. We're like, Jesus Christ. So like that, and of course that's right now. It's particularly bad right now, but even before COVID, that's just not the case. You do have to wait in the United States. Like, anyone who's ever gotten medical treatment can tell you you're not going to be seen immediately. And that's the case everywhere. That's just the nature of medicine. Like, you're going to be prioritized if you have a more life-threatening condition. That's just how it works. So if you cut your little fingy, you're not going to get seen immediately. That's just how it goes. Dr. Hakeem, tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, you're completely right. A lot of people don't understand. People are like, oh, he's just sitting in the office. They're just playing with their balls. What are they doing? That's not true. I'm playing with other patients' balls. Memes aside, it's because we always prioritize the most like acute patients, right? And there's like a list,
and balls are pretty sensitive. They're up there on the list.
Exactly right.
Positive discrimination towards people with balls.
Exactly right. No, there's no affirmative action for them, sadly. My point being is that when you see an emergency patient, normally, since you work in an emergency ward, other emergency patients start showing up, right? They don't just wait politely until you're finished with one guy. And as a result, you have a lot of people who have less acute things that end up waiting. All right, that's not to say that in many cases, because of just sheer overwhelmment. I don't think that's a word.
Overwhelm.
But
I looked it up recently myself. It's overwhelmed due to sheer overwhelm.
Okay.
It's weird.
Due to sheer overwhelm of the emergency ward, there's some people who are pretty bad, and they still have to wait a long time. And that's kind of an issue of organization, of funding, of staffing, etc., etc. And again, all these have material causes that could be fixed. By the way, I learned something interestingly. Another side of the thing. In 1966, 1 out of 5 doctors on Earth were in the Soviet Union. 1 out of 5. And the Soviet population wasn't Soviet Union population wasn't 20% of the world. I can promise.
And they're famous for having private healthcare, right? They're like, that's there's a direct correlation.
Of course, exactly right. Oh my god. But yeah, and by the way, the only reason that almost all like post-socialist and post-Soviet countries have even a semblance of a decent healthcare system is because of this, like the socialist hangover. People know what good healthcare is like, and people know what affordable and ever-present healthcare is like, and they're not just going to give that up and privatize it, unlike countries which have never really had or had in like messed up ways.
I can confirm.
That's exactly right. Of course, that's not to say that there weren't problems with the healthcare, blah blah. Of course, when you look at the way that people did medicine in fucking 1962, it's barbaric compared to today, obviously. Okay, fuck, but that's the thing. I remember I was reading. Sorry, another tangent. But I was reading. It was like, they're talking about anesthesia, and there's like, it's an emerging science. I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Okay.
Oh man, but no, it's like a bit of a meme, but up until like the 40s and 50s, anesthesia was basically an emerging science. So be thankful that you live in the modern era, but also you might die in the climate war. So it swings and roundabouts. But American healthcare outcomes are dog shit. So no, this is just a bullshit meme.
Yeah. All right, moving on from something everyone can agree on, that U.S. healthcare is bad. I think we can all agree that immigrants are coming to take our jobs, and that's this is another huge one in the U.S. I'm very curious to hear what it's like in your guys' parts of the world. But the notion that you've got these migrants swarming over the border in caravans to come and take your high-powered executive positions or whatever.
Yes. Power suit wearing.
Yeah. Do you guys have that rhetoric where you are as well?
There are no jobs here, so.
which is proof that foreign powers coming into your country leads to lack of jobs. But in your case, it was Americans coming and not taking, but removing.
The Americans took our
jobs. Yeah.
We gave you a bunch of shit to rebuild, though, didn't we?
Yeah, that we did, and no money to do it with.
I'm sorry.
By the way, your oil wealth is ours now. I mean, in a way. You guys even failed at that. It's such a bullshit endeavor. I feel so bad for the average American, especially the ones who were bamboozled and supporting that stupid war. You have nothing to show for it. Your housing, the housing crisis ruined fucking millions of your... Jesus Christ. I swear to God, Americans are something else. Sorry, go on.
I mean, the whole conversation about job loss due to immigration is overshadowed by everybody knows this, by the fact that capitalism and its constant need for growth will search for ways in order to cut costs, which leads to private enterprises offloading labor to places where labor costs less, until those countries themselves also develop more into consumer societies instead of societies which create things because of the lower labor cost, which then will further continue to export that to a third party, which will then grow and export it to a third party until we reach a point in which that said labor cannot be exported further. But that is a conversation for another time. Basically, inside of capitalism, there is no patriotism. There is no manner through which to preserve jobs, both those necessary and bullshit jobs in one particular location, because it makes no fucking financial sense.
Okay, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. That's all really boring. And I don't care about that because I listen to Tucker Carlson and he says that there's a migrant caravan. So that's the thing. Like all of these arguments are like they're easily explained if the person you're speaking to is willing to just shut up and listen for 5 minutes and consider that these issues are a little bit more nuanced than it's been presented to them. It's been tied up with a bow by Tucker or whomever on the whatever right-wing pundit they've been listening to. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted. Please continue.
Oh, no, you should have, because that is why the rhetoric around immigration, the rhetoric around the laziness, the rhetoric around private healthcare, about affirmative action, about personal responsibility, about welfare queens exists. It is another extension of finding blame for why the system itself does not work. The positive manner through which to look at it as Marxists is, I guess, the more of these conspiracy theories they come up with, the more the all their conspiracy theories are no longer do justice to what they're trying to pull off. Basically, they've been watered down. They don't work anymore. That is why they're coming up with new shit. And the immigrants taking your jobs is one of the oldest ones, and at this point, one of the absolutely weakest ones, especially because even when the immigrants come into your country, for example, most diplomas from most foreign countries coming into the United States, especially from the developing world, I'm just using this as an example, are not really accepted. So you have a bunch of fucking rocket scientists cleaning toilets. Not like there's anything wrong with cleaning toilets, but the local American at some point really does start seeing that the Mexicans do work hard, so he doesn't fucking think they're fucking lazy, no matter how racist he is. And number two, they see that they're not gonna own the carpentry job, carpentry company. They're gonna work in the carpentry company. They're not gonna fuck me over because the United States government is not going to let them, because they're not accepting their degrees, and they're not letting them into their local, even state colleges in order for them to get a local degree. And the ones that immigrate as wealthy people who end up studying in the U.S., be it on a stipend or because they come from money, never actually interact with people that believe that quote-unquote immigrants are taking jobs, so they don't really notice them either. Therefore, this particular tool, which is used to make you feel like you're special just because you're born in a particular country, another person needs to get to their country, is dying off because, as I said, number one, it's no longer a useful rhetorical tool, but number two, there's been a lot of migration in the last 50-60 years. Economic migration. There's always been migration for 100 different reasons, from war to natural disaster, etc., etc. But never as much economic migration, which implies that people who are migrating think that it's much better over there where we're going. But as the world has slowly been developing, a lot of fucking, Koreans and fucking Nigerians and Argentinians over in the United States do what once every 3 fucking years? They go visit their family, and they're starting to see, man, this fucking migrating over there fucking thing, this fucking promised land that I supposedly went to, and I barely have like a little fucking corner store under the apartment in which I live, and I spent 40 years there, and my cousin from back home is doing as well, if not better than me. So the dream of going to these developed countries in order to make something of yourself is not dying only locally. The American dream is not only dying locally, but dying internationally. And it's going to come to a point where the same very people who are scared of immigrants taking their jobs, sitting on the fucking pavement and begging for any fucking immigrant to dare come over to their country. And it is going to be a glorious moment to see. I would rather cut my arm off than live in the States. It is literally the only country I would never live in. Yeah. I have spent months and months in that country. I've seen all the corners of that country. It is the only country where I would absolutely never, ever, 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 ever live in. Not saying the American people are beautiful, but it's just nobody wants to migrate.
You don't appreciate our strip malls and our 8-lane highways and our concrete junk.
The concrete roads, boys. Yeah, the concrete roads. I don't know what to tell you. Like this, do you know the worst part about do you know the worst part about it? Isn't that how like the current state of the U.S.? It's the potential of the U.S.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The insane potential that it could possibly have if there was a proper economic plan, a socialist divided democratic effort, and actual inclusion of the people who built the fucking country, some level of
I was thinking that the other day. It's like we have everything going for us. Everything. I mean, resources, space, great geography. If we just
and it's parking lots, drug addicts, and fucking CEOs. That's the whole fucking country.
There's your doomer pill for the day.
Exactly right. No, and that's the thing, the true pain of it, I guess. And that's actually, again, I'll make this point because I don't think Americans realize how messed up this is. It is not normal to pass 8 homeless people on like your way to work. That's not a normal thing, right? There are war-torn countries that have less homeless people. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. That's
It's a
the thing.
snake that eats its own aspect. They get used to it, so, so it grows, so they get used to it more. But just one thing. Sorry for interrupting you. But to me, the more annoying motherfucker than the immigrants taking their jibs, conservative, is the. You should appreciate what you have in the United States because some people would give their lives to come over liberal. That is the new spin on the same fucking thing, and that works for the fucking libs. And it's arguably more fucking racist because they think the conservative is racist because he thinks this guy is gonna come and take a shit. He's selfish, and the guy coming is not gonna be able to do the job as well as him. The lib thinks that everything else, like the whole planet except for this country, is an absolute fucking shithole.
Yep.
It's a much more expansive racism than the previous one. The other guy just thinks our culture suck. The other one thinks the planet is fucking decrepit.
I love all the immigrant rhetoric because it's very transparent. It's particularly funny from the conservatives because it's like Schrodinger's immigrant. They're simultaneously lazy welfare queens and also these like hyper industrious job takers. All right, like which one is it, man? Like you make up your mind. It's but they're not exactly known for clarity of thought. Let's say.
Steal that term. Actually, that could be a nice title.
Schrodinger's immigrant.
Yeah, Schrodinger's argument. You can expand it on all of these.
There's an idea. Well, I think that'll do it for today. We tackled 10 things. That's a lot of debunks in a single episode. We hope you all enjoyed this I guess official 1-year anniversary of the podcast. Again, thank you all so much for sticking around and sharing with your friends and laughing at all of our memes. We really could not have done this without you, and we hope to do many more episodes in the future.
More years.
Many more years. Yeah, we're 1/10 of the way to 550 episodes. We'll see you then.
We promised 5,500. The nightmare of Hakeem shall come to pass.
Yeah, don't do the math on how long that'll take.
As JT's daughter travels through the deserts of what is the American Midwest and listens to the only remaining show on planet Earth, the Deprogram. And every time we log in, she'll be like, "What the fuck are you deprogramming? The whole fucking planet's dead. Everybody knows that capitalism doesn't work anymore." And we're sitting there and we're like, "Yeah, man, the malls, man, it's a strip mall country, man."
She's our last patron.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. This has been the Deprogram. I'm JT.
I'm Hakeem.
And I'm Gopnik. I don't
get slapped in the mouth with a foreign penis.
Unless you want to.